Hi, my name is Vizzy Coles, and I'm the General Manager for Turfscape. We're excited to be here today to show you a step-by-step guide on how to turfscape your yard. Gordon Bevis and I are going to teach you how to install Turfscape artificial grass in a typical landscape setting. For an effective installation of your Turfscape landscape turf, you will need the following: your rolls of Turfscape artificial grass, a shovel or gas-powered sod puller, a dirt tamper or vibrating plate compactor, weed barrier mesh, rock aggregate, a utility knife, 12-inch wide seaming tape, synthetic turf or outdoor carpet glue, silica sand infill, a push broom, weed killer, galvanized 40 to 60 D nails or 6-inch stakes, seed drop spreader, motorized brush. Most of these materials can be found at your local nursery or rented from a home improvement store. First, identify and mark off the area that you will install your artificial grass. It's optional to use outdoor spray paint to aid you during this process. Consider the dimensions and layout of your turf, as each panel is 15 feet wide. When coming up with a layout plan, try to get the most out of each roll as to limit the number of seams required and turf remnants left over. The next step is to remove sod layer. Use shovels or gas-powered sod puller. You can also hire a local landscaper for assistance. You should remove approximately 2 inches to 3 inches of soil. This is required so the edges of the synthetic turf are at an even level with the natural landscape. It is also important to have the subbase pitched slightly away from buildings and toward your ideal water runoff location. You have two options when it comes to sprinkler systems. Option 1 is to cap the sprinklers' heads and turn off the water valves. Option 2 is to carefully cut around the sprinkler. Next, you will need to compact the existing ground to firm it up fully. To do this, you may want to rent a vibrating plate compactor to assist you. They are available at most hardware stores and rental centers. In most climates, it's a good idea to spray weed and grass killer around the area to prevent weeds after installation. Next, place a weed barrier mesh down and trim to fit your installation area. Weed barriers are optional for some dry and desert regions. Next, add a top layer of rock aggregate. 1/2 inch minus is best to avoid protruding rocks after installation. The purpose is to firm and level your base. 1 to 3 inches of subbase is appropriate for most installations. However, in some regions in the country, where soil is especially unstable, you may need up to 5 inches of subbase material. If more than 3 inches of subbase material is used, you will also need to increase the amount of soil removed. Never hesitate to ask a local expert like a nursery, landscape center, or rock yard if you are uncertain or have any questions. Now it's time to spread and compact the subbase material. Walk around and check the surface for depressions. Any depression areas 1/8 to 1/4 inches deep should be filled in and re-leveled. This is the time to make sure the surface slopes away from buildings and toward your ideal draining location.
So this needs to be really compacted, needs to be very firm. The ideal thing to use is a motorized plate tamper. The plate tamper is gasoline powered and it's very strong down pressure. And so it'll put about 1,000 pounds of force on here, and the plate is a couple of feet square and you'll get a really smooth surface. Here we've had to use a hand tamper. You just want to make sure it's as firm as possible because you're going to be walking on this surface and you don't want to displace the stone.
Here's a tip. We suggest rolling out the turf the day before installation to allow the fibers to relax to its natural upright position. Next, unroll the turf across the installation area. Carefully position it so you are using the maximum surface area of the roll to fill the space. Try your best to avoid dragging the turf. Once in position, carefully cut off excess material around the perimeter so it's easier to work with. Always use a sharp blade in your utility knife to make cutting safer and easier. Keep the surface flat and double check for wrinkles. Next, slowly trim the turf more exactly to fit up against the edge. For optimal installation, make sure the turf is exactly over the prepared base. When finished trimming, nail the perimeter every 6 inches with your nails or stakes. Some high traffic areas may need to be secured every 2 to 4 inches. Continue around the perimeter, only doing sections that are away from areas that need seaming. Move slowly and keep the surface flat and tight to avoid wrinkles.
So the next procedure on this particular installation is we have to make a seam right here. So I've been very careful to cut this piece of turf very close to a row. And now I'm going to take the extra piece of turf here and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to do my best to cut this right up next to the tuft of the carpet row. I'm going to very carefully cut this right down the row and not skip any rows. Cut it straight.
Before adhering both pieces of turf, ensure that both edges have been properly trimmed, straight, and will match up perfectly. You can always pay a local carpet installer to help you for a few hours with this process if it makes you feel more comfortable. The seams are simply glued together with any synthetic turf or outdoor carpet glue and seaming tape. Cut the 12-inch wide piece of seaming tape the length of the seam. Lay the turf seam to seam with fibers facing the same direction to ensure it fits tightly together before it is glued. Lay the seam tape down on the base directly underneath the 2 pieces of turf that are to be joined lengthwise. Apply the gluing compound to the entire piece of seam tape with the notched trowel. Place one side of the turf in the middle of the tape approximately 6 inches to the center of the tape. Lay the other side over the middle of the seaming tape to match it exactly to the turf that has just been adhered to the tape. Press firmly or walk up and down the seam. Mesh the fibers together with fingers or brush. Next, you may finish up any nailing or staking around the edges to fully secure the turf in place. Allow 24 hours for glue to properly dry. The following infill procedures can be administered during the drying time, but the turf may shift and require repositioning. Take your broom and brush the turf in the opposite direction that the turf is naturally laying. This will allow the infill material to infiltrate the turf rapidly and prevent turf blades from getting trapped underneath. Here's another tip. Calculate the amount of infill in advance, as you will want to leave 5/8 inches of the grass blades exposed. 1.5 pounds of sand equals 1/2 inches of infill height per square foot. For this step, you can use either a seed drop spreader or gently spread by hand. Use silica sand as an infill to help weigh down the turf and stabilize the fibers. This will help avoid matting of the turf fibers and keep them standing up straight. It's important to use silica sand and not playground sand. This will avoid clumping and clogging the drainage. Spread and brush the infill in several passes. As you spread the sand infill, you should make one entire pass on the surface. Then brush it down into the fibers, repeating the process until all of your infill has been spread. Repeat brushing by hand or with motorized brusher. Take one last walk and make any adjustments as needed. Congratulations! You've just installed your very own Turfscape artificial grass.
Thank you so much for watching. We hope you enjoyed our video. Make sure to check out our website and we'll hear from you soon.